Hello everyone, and welcome back to Left.Z channel. Thank you all for watching the video last week, if you did. If you didn't, go back and watch it. But thank you everyone, it had a lot more engagement and a little bit more growth than I had normally seen, and thank you all to my friends who watched and supported me. So yeah, thank you all. Today, we are coming back with a classic video. We are dunking on Ben Shapiro. Yes, the Ben Shapiro, the failed screenwriter turned American right-wing grifter. Yes, today we are watching a video of his where he's going to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on surrounding abortion. And I have a confession to make. I tried to record this video twice. The first time I didn't get very far through before I realized that it had stopped recording. However, last time I thought it was recording the whole time, and I learned that pressing spacebar to start the video also stops the recording. So I'm gonna have to go change that, but third time's the try. So I've already seen this video, but I still want to give some commentary about it. It's annoying, and I don't know, it at least can hopefully give us a good conversation about how we talk about abortion. Anyway, let's get started.
Meanwhile, there are a series of hearings that are going on the Hill with regard to abortion law. And the left seems to think that since the overruling of Roe versus Wade and Dobbs, that the winds of change are with them. They seem to think that the American people have sided with them on the question of the morality of abortion, and they are not reading the room correctly. Most Americans have a sort of wishy-washy in-the-middle opinion on abortion. This seems to be what all the polling shows. Americans want heavy restrictions in the last trimester. They want some restrictions in the second trimester. They don't want nearly as many restrictions in the first trimester. That seems to be what the polling shows.
Ben's right here. He's going to exaggerate things to his side a bit more, but as far as I know, a lot of people do have this kind of more in the middle position on abortion across the board. However, I do also know that still there is a good majority of people that believe that abortion should be accessible in some sort of capacity. Again, most people want restrictions, especially on late-term abortions, and I get it. It is a visceral kind of thought to think about something that looks so much like a baby being surgically removed from someone's body. It is kind of a gross procedure. We're going to talk about all of that, but I definitely think that Ben is exaggerating. Most people, there is a good majority of people who genuinely want access to abortion. At least 70% of people did not want Roe v. Wade to be overturned, at least not without some sort of replacement.
None of that suggests that women have a right to choose from point of birth all the way backwards. Like nobody actually thinks that. That is a position held by a vast minority of the American population, and yet that's precisely the argument Democrats are making. And Democrats, all they have to do is say that there is a trade-off in development and that you have, this would not be an intellectually honest argument, but it would be a politically effective one. There's a trade-off in the development of the human embryo from an embryo to a fetus. And as the child grows more developed, it now has more of an interest in life that has countervailing interest against the choice rights of the mother. And thus, as you grow later in the pregnancy, there should be more restrictions. But earlier in the pregnancy, when the child is not as developed, then we should be less restrictive. And that seems to be what Americans feel, even though if it isn't particularly coherent. But Democrats can't make that argument. And so instead, what they have decided is that it is a fundamental equality principle that women be able to abort kids at whim all the way up until birth. And if you deny this is because you are denying women.
Okay, so first of all, let's be clear here what late-term abortions are like. First, they are very, 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 very rare. And almost all of the time, they are due to a medical emergency, medical emergency or situation, I guess is a better word for it. But almost all the time with the late-term abortion, it's because doctors have figured out that there is something wrong. There is something that could cause danger and health risks to the mother or even the possible fetus itself. And a lot of times that is a very difficult decision for people to make. In my opinion, I think that we need to leave these decisions to the people that are having the child, of course, loved ones if they want to be included, and of course, doctors who know and understand what is going on and where the risks are and what is the safest or most optimal path in each case. Let's continue. Obviously, a lot of pro-lifers like to focus on late-term abortions because, of course, like I said, you can get some pretty vivid imagery that most people are uncomfortable with. But let's keep going.
And as they now call them, pregnant people or people capable of being pregnant. And so you've seen Democratic witness after Democratic witness get up there in front of Congress and just make fools of themselves, sound demonic in the way that they describe pregnancy and the way that they describe the treatment of preborn children. So, for example, one abortion witness was named Sarah Lopez. She was testifying in front of the Senate hearing on abortion and women's health care. And she described the abortion that she got. And this is just, it sounds like direct from the mouth of Satan. I mean, that is what this sounds like. It's unbelievable. And I'm not a person who invokes Satan a lot, but this sounds satanic.
What these restrictions are intended to do is try and stop people from having abortions, but abortion is healthcare. My abortion was the best decision I ever made. It was an act of self-love, and I'm here today to make sure that everybody who currently needs an abortion, who has had an abortion or will need an abortion, is not alone, no matter what the state tries to force upon us.
I don't get how that's demonic. Like, Ben Shapiro is clearly exaggerating again about this lady. And really, I don't know, it's so weird to think about how someone could interpret what she was saying as demonic. She was saying that she had a situation where she made a decision that eventually turned out to be a good decision for her, and she wants other people to be able to make that decision. That doesn't sound like anything bad. It sounds like someone that cares for their fellow human. Let's keep going. I am implying that Ben does not care for his fellow human because I don't think he does very much.
Best decision she ever made, like all the decisions in her entire life? What if she'd made a better decision with regard to not getting pregnant in the first place? It was the best decision she ever made, ever?
It's the best decision that she's ever made, ever? I think that we all know what she means here. It's actually that this decision was extremely impactful in her life. Obviously, having to suddenly raise a child can seriously throw off what is going on around you. And, it's a very difficult experience. It's very hard to raise children. Ben, I know you wouldn't know this because your wife raises your children all on her own, but it is hard to raise children. And, I think that a lot of times pro-lifers will try to diminish how impactful having a child is, how it will influence every single part of your life going forward. And, that's not something that we should take so lightly.
Like truly? The killing of the preborn baby. That, like of all the decisions, it wasn't a decision she made with regret. It wasn't that she had to weigh the balances of the scales of human life against her future hopes. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't safe, legal, and rare. It wasn't a woman in anguish attempting to deal with the realities and hardships of parenting. It wasn't any of that. It was the best decision. It was an act of self-love. Now that at least is honest. It was an act of self-love.
First of all, Ben, you do not know. You don't know what she's gone through. You don't know what sort of psychological torment or grief that she might have gone through. And, you also don't know if she didn't. And honestly, if she didn't go through, some sort of tough decision-making process about her abortion, like, okay, that's fine. Some people think and feel differently about things. We live in a world with 7 billion people, and if someone is less sad about having an abortion, I don't think that we should cast them off as demonic or having no empathy. I think that person just simply, recognizes that a fetus does not have the same impact on your life that a full-grown child has.
It was an act of other hate, but it was also an act of self-love because it's about loving yourself at the expense of an actual other human being.
Except there's a very big difference between the mom and the potential baby here. The mom is here. She can speak for herself. She has thoughts and feelings and a life and friends and family and everything. That fetus is a bunch of tissue and cells. It cannot think. It cannot react to stimuli at most of the time until later. But even later, it's still an organism that is completely dependent on the mother or the person carrying the fetus. It is attached to that person's body. Like, it cannot be removed. Most of the time, if it is, it will not live. Again, there's more complicated stuff to that, but we even talked about how already the late-term abortions are usually medical emergencies where there is a lot of risks in play. And so, again, it's just not something, a decision that you can make for other people, I don't think. I think that the whole idea of pro-choice is you get to decide. And no one can tell you what is the right decision because there's not always going to be a right decision.
Producer Bradford was asking me, do these people even hear themselves? And the answer is they do, but they think that no one else hears them other than, like, they think that in their bubble, they believe they are the greatest people who have ever lived. And therefore, everyone else must hear them that way because all they've gotten for years is validation by other people who agree with them about this perverse cultish view. When she talks about abortion there, she sounds horrific. I mean, name a person who has committed an evil act of death upon another person who didn't believe that it was an act of good for them. That's typically how it works.
First of all, it's not fucking murder. It's not. I'm sorry. That's not a person in there. Or at least it's not a person independent of the person carrying it. Ben, of course, it was the decision that was best for her. That is how decisions work. You decide and look at the possible outcomes of a situation, and you try to decide what is best for you. That is what we do all day. It's called decision making. It is a basis to cognition and intelligence, which I guess maybe explains why Ben Shapiro is having some issues here. Also, why does he have that weird earpiece in his ear? Like, is he listening to the videos that he's been showing us? But if that's the case, why do you have this one? What is wrong with you? Like, if you are listening to the videos, then, like, get a normal headphone, please.
I really don't. That wasn't the only Democratic witness brought forth. There was an abortion witness named Dr. Kristen Brandy, and she testified that abortion is liberation. It is worth celebrating. Shout your abortion.
For some, abortion is liberation. There's a lot of good that comes from people's ability to access abortion, and I want to celebrate that.
Celebrate it. It's worth celebrating. There's so much good that comes from it.
Yes, because abortion is about freedom. And I think that there is definitely some room to celebrate the freedom that having access to this medical technology affords you. It affords you to be able to shape your life the way that you want it to and decide when you have kids rather than suddenly have kids when you're not ready, when you can't give those kids the best life, the life that they deserve. There is a ton of freedom in that. And I don't think that pro-lifers really understand what that freedom really is. We have a greater ability to determine what happens in our lives by influencing our body. That is the entire field of medicine, really. We have this technology that we can use to change our body, to make our body work in a different way. in order to have better outcomes in our conscious world that we live in. I don't think that there's a problem with that unless you have a problem with the field of medicine or just generally if you want to like never have technology.
This is not the regretful attitude toward abortion that most Americans have, even if they are pro-choice. This is a perverse view of why you are the center of the universe and everything ought to revolve around you. And this is a 2-year-old view of the universe in which everybody is there to serve you and you have no obligations to anyone else. And it is worth celebrating.
I don't see how like other people are necessarily involved here. You know, this is when you talk about someone that gets an abortion, it's a person who has a life on their own, and you know, they have some they are the one that controls their body, and so they should probably have a big say in what happens with their body. Considering that fetuses are usually attached to their body, and can't be taken out very easily. So it seems to me, Ben, weird that you want to control someone else's body, which I don't know. How are you going to do that? Like, do you want to do like a brain swap sort of situation? But that means they get to take control of your body, and I don't think anyone wants that.
This stuff is incoherent, and if Democrats really want to run on this nationally, they're going to get clocked, and they should be clocked.
It's okay. The Democrats aren't doing anything about it anyway. They have an amazing time. They have like literally, it was handed to them on a silver platter. The Supreme Court overrules Roe v. Wade. The Democrats, they've got the presidency and the Congress, and they're like, could we take advantage of this situation right before the midterms, especially when people are paying more attention to politics? Maybe we could codify Roe v. Wade and make it a legislative law that you have the right to an abortion, and you should be able to access it, and also be able to use the millions and millions and millions of dollars at your disposal to, I don't know, prop up more abortion clinics, especially near borders. And there's been the idea of doing it on federal land, which could work in some cases, but I don't know the details of that. But either way, unfortunately for us, but I guess Ben would be happy about it, the Democrats have done nothing. Woo! Let's keep going.
Meanwhile, the president of the National Women's Law Center cannot actually define the word woman. I mean, this is how far left they have moved.
This is how far left they have moved. Oh no. We're getting into they cannot define the word woman. This is going to be a treat, you guys.
Her name is Fatina Graves, and she's asked, what is a woman? You literally run a thing called the National Women's Law Center. So, what is a woman? No answer.
I was hoping that you could define what a woman is for us in this committee hearing.
Well, as the president of the National Women's Law Center, you can imagine I say woman a lot in my day job.
Okay, so I'm just asking for the definition.
So what I'll tell you is I am a woman. That's how I identify.
Okay.
But I wonder, however, if in part the reason that you're asking a question is that you're trying to suggest that people who
I am
don't
simply asking the
identify as
question,
women
and I
can't
simply
be
want an
pregnant.
answer.
And so I think it's actually really important to be very clear here that there are people who identify as non-binary. I think
Okay,
about
all right.
5% of young
We're not
people
going to go
do.
there. I was hoping maybe
Can
you would.
be
I was
pregnant.
hoping that maybe you would say something that maybe we learned in high school biology that has to do with X and Y chromosomes, but which define male and female. But I guess we're not going to get there.
Oh boy, that was a big one. I let it just go through the entire thing. Great job to the witness there who tried to start to give him an explanation. But of course, these people don't want an explanation. And it's so annoying to see a representative of ours try to lead someone down such a ridiculous line of argument. You know, of course, she knows why he's asking what is a woman and for a definition of what a woman is. He wants to imply that trans women aren't women and that non-binary people don't exist and everything like that. And she just doesn't want to deal with that. She's trying her best to give him a definition and to, say explicitly what is true, in that gender is not a binary and that there are many different people who receive abortions and many different people that call themselves women, including me. Oh my gosh, last time I recorded this, I went on a rant about chromosomes, and I think I'm going to do it again. This guy, it's really funny that this guy says, can you give us an explanation like something we learned in high school with X and Y chromosomes? And it's because these people want a high school explanation of specifically their high school definition of gender. But that doesn't exist. Actually, it's starting to exist as more and more schools adopt a more comprehensive curriculum to teach gender and sex, which is great. But of course, that's not happening in most places. But even when it comes to chromosomes, it's a lot more complicated than this guy is going to think. There are so many different ways that chromosomes can present itself differently that can't be easily put into XY is male and XX is female. There are many different combinations. You can have XXX, I believe. You can have like XXY. You can have just X. You can have just Y. You can have like XYY, I think. There's lots of different combinations. And actually, you can also have different chromosomes to what you would expect with your genitals. There was actually an interesting story I heard about how they used to, in science classes in middle school, have kids test for their chromosomes, but they stopped doing it because a bunch of kids were starting to suddenly figure out that they're intersex, because sometimes your chromosomes don't match your genitals. It's weird, but it happens. And actually, there's also another theory that a lot of trans women can be seen to have a part of the Y chromosome broken off and part of an X added on or something like that. Some sort of way that even parts of chromosomes can get mixed up. Chromosomes are a lot more complicated than what this guy is going to say. And it's really sad, but it's really funny that the thing is, these guys want their high school definition, and they're adults and can't handle a college definition. This is a sitting congressperson. I would hope that they've had some sort of college education, or at least recognizes that some things are more complicated than what you learned in high school. But no, I guess not. These guys are just being ridiculous. They aren't taking this conversation seriously, when we could have a good conversation about, how to reduce abortions by increasing sex ed funding, or making contraceptive easy to get and stuff like that. But they don't want to talk about that. They just want to be exaggerated and take people down trick questions and they just want to argue. It's kind of weird. I like to argue, but these guys, they really just want to make up something to get mad about and annoy some people with, it feels like.
Okay, and we're not going to get there, because these witnesses have no relationship with reality. She says, I say the word women a lot. He's like, okay, so define it. And she's like, well, I won't. Then what do you do for a living? What is it you would say that you do around here? Now, in the end, when they're really confronted with these questions, Democrats then have to go to their fallback argument, which is that if you dare question why a woman would have an abortion, it's because you have a low opinion of women. Women actually do have anguish. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either it's worth celebrating and it's an act of self-love, or it's something you ought to be anguished over, in which case there should be restrictions on it.
That's such a false dichotomy, though. You can have abortions that are unfortunate and sad, and we can be sad over, but we can also still celebrate the freedom. We can celebrate the way that abortions may have been able to save people's lives, have been able to save people's lives. I just love how Ben Shapiro tries to reduce things into, black and white. That's something that I've actually started to notice, I think, is that a lot of conservatives see things in more black and white rather than, the shades of gray that I think almost everything is.
This is how you end up with the fallback sort of position of Georgia State Representative Renita Shannon. Here she is trying to explain that if you believe that some women are pretty flippant about the lives of the unborn children within them, then that is because you have a low opinion of pregnant women, which again is a mutually exclusive argument with the idea you ought to celebrate abortion.
Starting with Ms. Lopez, I assume you agree with infanticide, the killing of a child, a perfectly healthy child at birth.
I don't accept the basis of that question, but I do believe abortion is health care.
That was such a great response to that question, because the question is clearly nonsensical. You are very kindly asking someone, do you think infanticide is good? Do you think it's okay to kill babies? And thankfully, Miss Lopez here, Sarah Lopez, knows what she's doing a little bit and is not going to entertain this idea that abortion is infanticide. And she's sticking with a good argument that abortion is healthcare. It's, something that even needs to be protected in order to keep women safe and people who have vaginas all across the board. My apologies.
I'm talking about, do you agree? I know, I get that, but do you agree? I mean, do you support infanticide, killing a child after he's born?
I do not agree with the basis of that question,
What's
but
the
I
basis?
do believe that abortion is health care.
Okay, so I'll take that as a yes, you do agree with infanticide. Mrs. Shannon, do you agree with infanticide?
Come on, dude. She doesn't believe that killing babies is okay. She thinks that it's a more complicated issue than you're making it out to be, and you know that it's a more complicated issue than you're making it out to be. I actually have been thinking about this lately, about how, if you really think that abortions is killing babies, at least that makes sense why some people would get violent about it, because I think that would be okay to be violent if someone was actually killing babies. But the fact that most pro-lifers are not saying that, or aren't going around bombing abortion facilities, I'm going to say that most of them have an innate understanding that it is a more nuanced situation than abortion equal kill baby.
Well, I think you're using inflammatory language to basically describe a situation that does not happen. We don't have infanticide happening. Doctors would not do that, and neither would folks who have carried pregnancies.
Okay, would a healthy child, do you agree if a healthy child is born, that it's that woman's right to decide if it lives or dies?
What I think is, based on your question, you have a very low opinion of pregnant people.
It's amazing.
It actually was really interesting. I liked the way that she said that you have a low opinion of pregnant people. And yes, it's because he is the congressperson here is trying to make a connection that women wanting abortions is people who can have abortions wanting abortions is just people that want to kill babies. And it's just ridiculous. And, he knows that it's more complicated than that, and it really says something about the way that he thinks of, well, mainly women in the situation of, what sort of autonomy they should have and what sort of decision-making power they should have in the medical world.
I mean, why don't you just say, no, I don't believe that it should be a woman's right to choose. But you can't say that. Instead, it's, well, to even ask the question means you have a low opinion of pregnant people. It's all a mess. It's a complete mess. Did you know that every single like creates one additional leftist tier? That is just science.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, Ben. I've never cried for you. That is the end of our video. That was a wild one. I did hope that you enjoyed and maybe learned something. And if nothing else, we learned that conservatives, they don't actually care about this issue. They just like to be annoying and to antagonize and to take away rights because it's fun for them. I don't know if that is true or not, but they clearly are just being ridiculous trying to, make these arguments. Their arguments they don't make sense anymore. They're kind of like just this like weird gotchas that they try to get you in all the time. And it's just like, dude, like you're not even having a conversation here. You're not taking this seriously. You're just trying to, blow this up into something that it really isn't. And instead, we can't talk about, the actual health problems and ethical situations that are going on here. Anyway, thank you again for all watching. Don't go to Ben Shapiro's channel. Please don't. It's garbage. I did not realize how much he fucking uploads. This guy is gross. Don't. None of you. No. I just liked this video, and we watched it together, so you don't have to. Anyway, though, thanks again for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope that you relax or get something done, and that you have a lovely evening or night or morning, whenever you're watching. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Have a great night, and I'll see you in the next video.